Places like Brownsea are becoming more important because red squirrels are still on the decline. They reckon now there's probably only about 150,000 red squirrels in the entire country. It sounds quite a lot, but to put that into context, there's about 2.5 million grey squirrels. So I think for every one red squirrel, there's, almost 20 greys.
We don't know when they first came to the island at all, because this used to be just heath and heather. There were no trees, so obviously they weren't there until 1720. But somewhere after that they were introduced, and the numbers stay virtually between 150 and 250 the whole time. There are probably 2 or 3 squirrels which were introduced later on to the island, so we've got quite a strong gene pool here. We are not sure, but we believe at least one came from Scotland and one came from Wales and another one from France. The red squirrels are far less destructive than the grey squirrels. They still do a bit of damage, but it's mainly the size. They weigh something about 250 grams, and the little ones are just about the same weight as a small sweet, about 25 grams or something like that when born. Completely blind, naked, and the mother looks after them for up to about 8 weeks. She might have 2 litters in a good year, so she gets rid of them after 8 weeks, and they're completely self-sufficient then.
I can remember, when I first came nearly 30 years ago, there didn't seem to be anywhere near as many as what there was. I've got an old census record, and it reckoned there was about 70 or 80 on the island. Well, now we reckon there's probably up to 250, so the population has certainly expanded.
And if they get more than 250 there, they've got their own self-regulating way. They just say, oh, this place is too crowded to have kids, and so they don't have any youngsters. And they become infertile for a year. Then the numbers drop, and the next year it's back to having... Likewise, if they haven't got many squirrels on the island because of some sickness which might affect them, the following year they'll have lots and lots of youngsters, and instead of what they're having now, about 2 youngsters in each litter, they'll have 4 to 6 youngsters twice in a year. So it soon raises the population there. When they're born, they're all right until the winter comes, but during the winter we used to find up to about 80% of the newborn squirrels would die in their first year, in the first winter. So what we've done is we put up a lot of these, like bird boxes, but bigger than that, with a little side window and a little porch so that they don't get their whiskers wet as they look out. Yeah. And they spend their winters in there, and because of that we get about 80% survival now instead of 20%, so helps a lot.
Grey squirrels carry this disease called squirrel pox virus. It doesn't harm the greys, they just simply act as carriers, transporting the disease, but it is lethal to the reds.
To a red squirrel, it's fatal, and we'd lose 80% of the population within the first few months.
Each individual squirrel has its own home range, as opposed to a territory. When something has a territory, it suggests that that territory has definite boundaries, and those boundaries are sort of defended. They'll actually fight to keep other squirrels or other animals out. Whereas with squirrels, all the ranges actually overlap, which is why you can get quite a lot of squirrels in quite a small area. So they are quite tolerant of each other.
The red squirrels love their beauty sleep, and they sleep dusk till dawn. The grey squirrels party all night. So if you've got a grey squirrel there and a red squirrel there, the red squirrels will sort of cram up and they become infertile and say this is no place to have babies.
That's a really good example of a Scots pine tree. And that's a nice mature tree, and that's producing lots and lots of pine cones. But once that tree reaches about 100 years old, the cone production starts to drop off. There's a succession from the very young pine trees coming through here, as you can see on the ground, right the way through to the very old pines, 200-year-old pine trees. So what that's why all this stuff here has all been sprayed to kill off the rhododendron. Hopefully now, once we've thinned these out a little bit more, there'll be enough light coming into this woodland so that the saplings can naturally regenerate, and then we will get the succession of age groups. So it's a nice stand of trees at the moment, but it's all of one age, which isn't good practice. When the squirrels are nibbling away, gradually rotating the cone, so that you end up with a cone that's been stripped of all its scales. These are the scales, the bits that they're just pulling off. They don't eat those, but to get to the seeds they've got to eat or pull those off, nibble them off, to get to the tiny seeds, which are right tight, close to the core of the cone.
These are sweet chestnuts. It's the same ones as you eat at Christmas. They've left this one because it's not very fat. But nicest thing about these sweet chestnuts, when they're not right, when the nuts are not quite ripe, they're very, very prickly and very hard to pick up. As soon as they turn brown, the little seeds inside, then the actual spines on it get very soft, and so the squirrels can quite happily have it. And you might get a picture of them later on, sort of carrying one of these in between their teeth and taking it up to their up until they graze.
The thinner pine behind the fatter one, there's a bundle of twigs at the top there. They're not very big, because the red squirrels themselves aren't very big.
But when you can look down there, and I can see at present 3 of them all at the same time, that's why I love it round here. And they're all the same family, you'll notice, because they're all just about the same colour. As you're going round, you'll find others with much lighter tails. They do have 2 coats, a winter coat and a summer coat. The summer coat is much lighter, but these are all the same family, so they'll be virtually the same colour ones right the way through. As you're going round, you'll see others. That one's slightly lighter than the other. There you've got a peacock. Peacocks will eat just about anything, but they don't outdo the squirrels because they have so many other things. They're wild on the island, but in actual fact, a lot of people feed them through the summer, so they get real scavengers. I've had sika deers on the island since about 1870. And at one time we got rid of them all from the island and put them on the mainland because the owner didn't want it. And they swam back again because they're very good swimmers. Oh, I've got the stag coming back to greet us.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's very often found there, and probably his wife will be coming along soon, but we may not.
Would the stags be any danger to the squirrels at all?
The stag is no danger to the squirrels. And as the life of the squirrel is in the wild average about 3 years, and their maximum lifespan in the wild is about 5.5, 6 years. So you've got the pox, which is going to knock out 80% of the red squirrels. You've got the fact that they're all the food is taken before they're ready, and then you've got your third thing with the actual psychological not being able to sleep.
And whenever greys move into an area that's occupied by reds, it's always the greys that end up as the winners. They don't exactly fight each other or anything like that, but the greys, being bigger, heavier animals, and have got more of a varied diet, they can eat more of the things that reds can't. Eventually they just outcompete them, and so the greys take over, gradually forcing the reds out.
There was this young female had a young kitten, the baby squirrel, and it died. And it was up by the visitors centre, and just outside the visitors centre we've got some very small stuffed squirrels there, just to make it look more like a squirrel area. The mother squirrel took one of the little squirrels that were there and put it in the box, the nest box, and used it as a comforter. Now squirrels have two litters, and luckily, fortunately, she had another squirrel baby born in the second litter. And so she tore open the stuffed squirrel and used all the kapok and everything inside, and used that as a bedding for the little baby kitten that has just born.